The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the only church that has the only Bible that I've seen, and I've seen a lot, that has the heading of Daniel chapter 11 spot on correct. If we are anywhere close to the return of Christ in power and glory, we are somewhere between verse 2 and verse 45. God has shown me different things in the scriptures. I have found that it's just not me that's going to make the great contribution, it's us.
Welcome in here to Zion Media, and as you can see, I've already got tears in my eyes. I got a call from my son just now as we were getting ready to record, and he sent me this picture. I don't know if you can see this picture, but it's a young man. He's not LDS, and he's kneeling down before he goes out to knock on doors, and it's something that I taught my son to do, and he's out there training these young men that aren't members of our faith, that are members of a variety of other faiths. There are no returned missionaries on our sales squad. And he called me in tears and he just said, "Dad, do you see what this is doing?" He's the only LDS person out there. He did not serve a mission. But this is his mission. I mean, he's teaching these young men before they go and knock doors to kneel down and to pray. And for a lot of these kids, they've actually never even done that before. They've never even said a prayer. And so to see that happening to me is like, there are so many cool ways we can be in Babylon and we can still do missionary work. So we can still do the Lord's work while having to participate in this Babylonian system. So anyways, I apologize for the tears. And we're joined. I got David Douglas here, of course. And I've got Lowell Taylor, and I'm really excited about this podcast. In fact, I've been looking forward to it. We're going to be talking about last days. We're going to be talking about timelines. And I know it's something that is on everybody's mind. It's certainly been on my mind as I look at all the different timelines that are out there to try and figure out, like, hey, when is this going to go down? Because we know it's coming. And so I'm excited for Lowell to come on and present what he has. But before we jump into the presentation, Lowell, tell us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your background, and how you got into developing your timeline.
Yeah, and I don't call it a timeline. I call it an event line. And as we go through the presentation, it's going to do a little intro about me. And so is there a way that we can bring up that?
Pull up the slide? Yeah, there you go.
Great. Wonderful. And so BibleScienceHappening.com, that's the main website. And there's a lot of information in that website. And I'll tell you right now, the vast majority of it is free. As you'll see, we're going to be talking about really, really critically important things here. And the last thing that I wanted to do was to say, I'm not going to share something that can help you and your loved ones unless you pay me something. No, guys, this is too important. We need to all see this and spread it far and wide. This presentation is called Saints' Bright Future because we're going to be bringing in not only the New Testament, the Old Testament, we're going to be bringing in the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and we'll probably bring in a quote or two from the brethren. And but how it got started here was that back in 1979, I had a patriarchal blessing, and it said, "Great wisdom and understanding will be yours, and you will make a great contribution in preparing the earth for the return of the Savior." Now, as time has gone on, and as God has shown me different things in the scriptures, uh, I have found that it's just not me that's going to make the great contribution. It's us. As I share this with you and you share it, and we all get to contribute to making this great contribution in preparing the earth for the return of the Savior. So in 1995, I had a very special experience. Um, I didn't see Heavenly Father or Jesus or angels, but what I felt was so powerful that it caused me to go on a journey to tenaciously keep the first great commandment first. And I've written about that back in the year 2022. And I made it into an ebook, and it's free. And you can get it at BibleScienceHappening.com. You can read it there online. And but it's about how powerful it is to put that first great commandment first, tenaciously. And it's called building superpowers within and mighty shields all about, with Heavenly Father, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost. Now, that was in 95 that I began that journey. And then in 1998, I had another very special experience where God invited me to go on a journey with Him to understand the general order the prophetic events of our day play out. But He said, don't go to the commentaries. I said, how am I going to do this? Read the scriptures.
Amen.
Well, you don't read the scriptures about the prophetic events of the last days for very long before you get stumped on who's this or what's that. And it's been an incredibly great journey. And sometimes it would happen quickly, and other times it would take weeks or months or years that I would get stumped on something, and God would show me the answer in the scriptures, except for a few times where I had very special experiences. Now, that was in 98. And then around 2000, I'll just say 2000, God guided me to see why so many people have been getting the order of events, wrong. More importantly, God has guided me to chapters and sections that are foundational for organizing the prophetic events of our day in general order. So in 2010 and 2011, I had 2 DVDs in some of the Deseret bookstore locations. And since that time, the information has become more validated. So this is significant here. Today, we're going to use these foundational chapters out of all the scriptures for organizing the prophetic events of our day in general order. Our journey will tie in the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Book of Mormon, and the Doctrine and Covenants. We will see what verse or verses we are on in an Old Testament chapter that is 45 verses long and is in chronological order. If we are anywhere close to the return of Christ in power and glory, we are somewhere between verse 2 and verse 45. And I think many of you are going to be very surprised. So we will see how an event in 3rd Nephi is rhyming with an event right this very moment. And I think many of you are going to be very surprised on that one too. We will see how some key events in 3rd Nephi and 4th Nephi rhyme with events coming. And I think many of you are going to be very surprised about that as well. And we will see a fabulous, uplifting event that many saints have not connected the dots as to when that specific, very uplifting event will happen. And I think many of you are going to be very surprised about that. It's my second favorite message about the prophetic events of our day.
I'm excited. You got me juiced. Let's go.
We will see the Old Testament and New Testament talked about a succession of 8 kings leading up to the return of Christ in power and glory. If we are anywhere close to the return of Christ in power and glory, one of them is ruling somewhere today. And I think many of you are going to be very surprised. And there is so much more. I think many of you are going to be very surprised. So, can we all agree? In our lifetime, we have had those who have said, this Bible sign is happening, or that Bible sign is going to happen. Yet, as time goes on, they're typically wrong. Can we all relate to that?
We've seen it.
Yeah. Can we all agree? When it comes to the Bible prophetic events of our day, generally speaking, Christians are all on the same page called clueless and confused.
I would say there's lots of people that just have at this point just said, oh, they've been saying this for far too long. And so there's a lot of people that instead of being clueless and confused, they've just given up hope.
Exactly. That's exactly right, Shane. This is so incredibly important because this has validation and there's going to be more validation in the coming months that's going to help those people who have been suffering from the old cry wolf syndrome. And this is so important. Now, around the year 2000, I found out why so many have been wrong. More importantly, God led me to what is more generally correct. Here's an example of showing we're on to something big, really, really big. So back in November of 2013, I came out with this poster. It's huge.
This looks like A Beautiful Mind. If you've seen that movie and the guy's writing all the stuff on the board, that's what this looks like here.
Yeah, this is 39 inches by 27 inches. And so the chart up on the middle area there, it has diagrammed of different chapters. And the chart is to help us to remember the scriptures. And it's the Holy Ghost that is there to help us to understand the scriptures. And so I'm so thankful that this is so important to have a prayer in your heart as we go through this presentation here. Now, I I put together what's called 210 prophetic points. And what a prophetic point is that each prophecy will have a beginning point. That's one prophetic point. And then each prophecy will typically have an end point. That's another prophetic point. And then John or Daniel or the angel could have mentioned points in between. And so taking all the prophecies from like Daniel chapter 7, 8, and 11, and basically from Revelation chapter 6 to 19, and breaking them down into their prophetic points, I came up with 210. And 193 to 210 is all about when Christ returns in power and glory. So if we're anywhere close to the return of Christ, then we're somewhere between prophetic point number 1 and 192.
Now, I don't know if it's just my slide, but I can't really see. I don't know, David, is that on my end? Is he zoomed in
It's
too
all
much?
pixelated. Is that on purpose?
let's go to the next slide and just see how that one looks in just a second. The green check, the green check mark means that the event has happened. The gold means that it might be shaping up, and the red check mark means that it's absolutely being fulfilled right now. Okay. And
Okay.
so, and so, um, so now up on the top left is that gold box I put around those prophetic points. We're going to zoom in that area there. And back in 2013, I showed that from 1925 to 2013, we are on prophetic point number 15. From 1925 to 2013, that's 88 years. And we had 15 things happen that the angel or John or Daniel said would happen. Now, look at this. In January 2025, we're all the way up to number 26 that has been fulfilled or that is in progress. This is huge because it's validating that these things are happening in the order that we would assume that they would be according to the angel or John or Daniel. And but look at this here. My guess, and it's just a guess, like I said, this is not a timeline, it's an event line. But by January 2026, we could be all the way up to green number 38. So ever since about the year 2000, I knew that there was going to be a period of time where there was going to be a lot of things that happen real quick. And then it's going to slow back down as far as how many are fulfilled, how fast. But even when it slows down, some of the prophetic points that happen are really, really significant. And so this was back in 2013, and then look at that chart, January 2025, and you can see that that chart has been filled in with more pictures. And that's really important because in Daniel chapter 7, 8, and 11, in Revelation chapter 17, regarding our day now, there's over 40 unique individuals who are referenced. And if you want to have fun, get your video and get your camera, put on video, and ask your friends how many of the 40 plus can they identify. None.
I hope we do it here. I hope you teach us.
And they go, yes. And, you go, well, okay, but you believe Christ is coming back real soon, right? Yeah. But you can't identify any of the 40. No. But you believe that Christ will return in power and glory when all the prophetic events leading up to his glorious return has been fulfilled as promised. Yeah. But you can't identify any of it. No. See, there's a little conundrum there, right? So I want to empower you to know for yourself the general order the prophetic events of our day play out. So you don't have to rely on me or anyone other than God. And that is the objective. So we begin. Enjoy the journey that just keeps getting more and more interesting. So in Revelation chapter 17, we read, John sees an image of a beast that has 7 heads, and an angel tells John that the 7 heads represent 7 mountains. And the 7 heads also represent 7 kings. Now, would one of you like to read those 2 verses?
Yeah, I'll read it. Verse 10 says, "And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Verse 11, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the seven, and goeth into perdition.
So we learn that there's the 7 kings that represent the 7 heads. Yeah, and then the whole image of the beast is represented by the 8th king. Okay? But that 7th king must continue a short space. Now look at this here. Look, get this right here. All right. Would you guys like to read those scriptures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel, do you want to read it, David? Go ahead.
Yeah. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom, but within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him.
So in the book of Revelation, we read about this this one king, the 8th king, that represents the whole image of the beast, that that he eventually gets the power, Satan, authority of Satan, and goes to fight against Christ when Christ returns in power and glory. And here in Daniel chapter 11, the vile person, that vile person, as you read verses 21 through 45, you'll see that is very, very descriptive that, yeah, he's the same person. He's the same person. And what's interesting is that in Daniel chapter 11, verse 20, it says that the king before him is killed. He dies within a few days of being king. So you got a few days in Daniel chapter 11, and then you got the 7th king in Revelation chapter 17, where the 7th king continues a short space. A short space, few days. Antichrist, Antichrist. Could we be on to something? So when my friend pointed this out to me back around the year 2000, he showed me these verses and said, Lowell, there's a connection there. Find it. I got to go. And he left. And so I sat down that Sunday and I started to read the 45 verses of Daniel chapter 11. And I got to about verse 7, and it had talked about so many kings, and I knew I had so many more verses to go. I just said, wait a second, hold on. And I just grabbed a pen and paper, and I started to diagram out Daniel chapter 11. And look at that. Look at that. As I diagrammed it out and I got closer to verse 45, I got more excited. And I got down to verse 45 and I go, it's there. It's there. What do you see? Succession of 8 kings.
That's right.
Huge. So if we're anywhere close to the return of Christ, then we're on the first or second or one of the 8 kings. So here's another huge, amazing discovery and insight. Daniel chapter 11 is the foundational chapter out of all the scriptures to date for organizing the prophetic events in general order. An angel of God is telling Daniel what happens in our day. No other chapter covers such a vast amount of time. It began to be fulfilled in 1925 and ends with the return of Christ in power and glory, all in chronological order without any major time gaps. There's always a prophetic person and or event all along the way. That is huge. So look at the diagram of Daniel chapter 11. There's a lot of information in that chapter, a lot. And so again, if we're anywhere close to return to Christ in power and glory, we're somewhere between verse 2 and verse 45. Now, what I would want to do is just take a quick commercial here. Look at the common interpretation of Daniel chapter 11 that started around 100 AD, perhaps with Josephus, or about 400 AD, perhaps with St. Jerome. Instead of focusing on end times, they went back in time. They skipped kings, they added kings, they skipped years, they added years, and they twisted the verbiage of historic events to make them seem to fit Daniel chapter 11. So look at this chart over here, and you can see where they had skipped kings. And now let me show you this here. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the only church that has the only Bible that I've seen, and I've seen a lot, that has the heading of Daniel chapter 11 spot on correct.
Thank you for watching this episode on Zion Media. And I'm actually here to let you know that we have a sponsor. It's Oraqel Code. Now, you've heard us talking about Oraqel Code a couple times. It's an algorithm and application that we're actually designing. And it actually tells you not only a little bit about yourself, but we've been able to adjust this algorithm or this app in a way that allows us to make a song for people. And some of the responses that we're getting is that this song is almost like a patriarchal song, because when people see what their code says about them, they say it's like, whoa, that's like my patriarchal blessing, or like a special message just for me. And then when we make a song out of it, it makes it even more unique and more attuned to who you are and your purpose here on life. And so really excited about that. The way you get access to your Oraqel Code and song is by go ahead and using the QR code that's on screen, or going in the link in the description and filling out the form, so that way you can be able to get your own Oraqel Code. I'm really excited to be able to be a part of this transformation and this blessing in people's lives. And I look forward to hearing what your Oraqel Code says about you today.
Can you guys read that heading?
Yeah, Daniel sees the successive kings and their wars, leagues, and conflicts that lead up to the second coming of Christ.
So Daniel chapter 11 is 45 verses long. Verse 1 is an intro, which verses 2 through 45 are happening or have happened. And I just want you to look right back over here. Look at all the kings that they skipped, the years that they skipped. That's not a succession. So now, let's go ahead and look at this here, verses 1 through 3. Well, let's go with 1 through 2 right now. Can you guys read that?
Yes.
You want to read it?
Yeah. Start at just Dan 11, or should I read above that?
Dan 11.
Okay, verse 1. Also I, the angel, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And now will I shew thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength through his riches he shall stir up against the realm of Grecia.
So Grecia. Yeah, and so
Persia.
when I read into Daniel chapter 11, again to look at, okay, where are we at? Or, we got to be somewhere between verse 2 and verse 45. As I got to verse 6 and 7, I realized that absolutely, 100%, those events have not happened. Now, this is around 2000. And I just thought, oh my gosh, are we really on verse 2? So reading those 2 verses there and seeing that verse 2 talks about these 4 kings, and the 4th king is supposed to be far richer than the first one, than the first 3. Then look at this here. So Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran right now, he is worth over $250 billion. And before him, it was Khomeini from 79 to 89. And before him, it was Pahlavi. And before him, it was Pahlavi's father, Pahlavi, who began a new dynasty in Persia, which he later changed back to the name of Iran. And the first 3 were worth about $1 billion to $3 billion each. So can we conclude that Khomeini is far richer than the first 3?
That is certainly the case.
Now the question is that, okay, so which country is Grecia? And, when I was thinking about this around 2000, who's Grecia? Who's Grecia? And then the Spirit just used a 2x4 to hit me between the eyes, and lo, Grecia is who Khomeini is stirring up everybody against. Look at the news. Well, since 1989, Khomeini has been stirring up all against the U.S. Why would an angel call the U.S. Grecia about 2,500 years ago? So back around 2000, I couldn't figure it out. And I said, unless something changes, we are Grecia. And so time went on. And in 2015, current events happened where I said, all right, we're Grecia, 100%, no question about it. We are Grecia. And then in 2016, one of my friends said, I know why the angel called us Grecia. And I go, okay, go ahead. Tell me why. And they said, what's the welcoming image of the United States? And I just kind of shook it and go, Statue of Liberty, what does it look like? Greek goddess. What about the Supreme Court building with all the pillars and everything? Greek architect. What about the White House with all the pillars? Greek architect. What about the statues? What about the Washington Monument? Isn't that amazing, guys?
Yeah. I mean, I can see that you're putting those pieces together for sure.
I talk to atheists, agnostic, Muslim, Christians, and within a minute of that explanation, they're all nodding their head, going, yeah, I see the connection to that. That is incredible. Now, we need validation, though, don't we? So let's go ahead and read verses 3 and 4. So this 4th king is to stir up all against the realm of Grecia. But what else happens?
Go ahead, tell us.
Can you guys read verse 3 and 4 for me?
Yeah, it sounds like the 4th king enters the picture, but I'll read it. And a mighty king, the 4th king, shall stand up and shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven. And not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion, which, I think it says, he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. Okay, so who's our 4th king here, and what is his kingdom?
The 4th king is Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran. He is
Okay,
far
so
richer than the first three.
is he about to go down? I mean, that's what it sounds like here.
It sure does sound like he's about to go down, but here's an interesting thing. We hear people talking about all the time about, oh my gosh, how um, Christ is coming back, Christ is coming back, Christ is coming back. Well, now we know about the succession of 8 kings. Well, guys, those first 4 kings, they've in totality, those 4 have been ruling for 99 years. And we got 4 more kings to go. Now, the 7th king, he only lives for a few days. But let's look at verse 4 just for a second, because when you're talking to people that have been influenced by the old common interpretation, they'll point out verse 4 and they go, that's talking about King Alexander the Great. When he died, then his kingdom was divided up amongst his 4 generals. Well, not so fast on that, because it shows that when this particular king, which is not King Alexander the Great, when his kingdom is broken, it shall be divided up towards the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity. Well, when King Alexander the Great died, his kingdom went to his half-brother, Philip, his posterity. And King Alexander the Great's wife was far along in pregnancy, and when she delivered, it was a boy, and she called him Alexander the Fourth. And then they appointed King Alexander's the Great right-hand man to be a regent. And a regent is a person that acts for behalf of the ruler who can't act for themselves.
Yeah.
So,
Lowell, I've heard some people, their interpretation of the 4 kings being basically kingdoms. So you're like, King of the West would be America, and King of the North would be, say, Russia, and King of the East is China, and King of the South would be, Arabia. Have you heard that interpretation as well?
yes, yes, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. That's an important point too. So let's get to that in just a second. Let's finish this thought up here. So when King Alexander the Great died, it went to his half-brother, and it went to his to-be-born son, and it continued that way for about 7 years. And then there was a lot of battles that went on, and instead of 4 generals fighting over different areas, there was 5. And so it's nowhere clean as what this is describing here. Now, Shane, to your point, oh my gosh, that is such a great question. That's a great comment there, because I see it happen so many times. But here's the thing, Shane, is that the scriptures, when you go back to the origin of the word king and everything else like that, it's a royal, it's a king. The difference is that a king only has his one life. A kingdom can have many kings during the course of its kingdom's life. We're not talking about kingdoms here. We're talking about the king of the kingdom.
Right. And we are saying it says his kingdom. So we are talking about an individual and that individual's kingdom.
Awesome. Right on. Yep. Now, Daniel chapter 8 also talks about a war between Persia and Grecia. However, Daniel 8 also mentions a king from Media. So let's go ahead and take a look at Daniel chapter 8. And I'm going to skip this verse here. The first two are just intros. We're going to get right to the meat. We're going to get to verse 3. And so Daniel's going to see imagery. And then later on in the chapter, an angel gives Daniel the interpretation. So we don't have to guess. So go ahead and read verses 3 and 20.
Okay, so Daniel 8:3 says, Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high. But one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Verse 20, The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media, and I can't see it.
In Persia.
And Persia, okay.
So when I diagrammed out Daniel chapter 8, that's not shown here on this slide here, I knew that the Persian king had to be Kamini, and he started to rule in 89. And so back around the year 2000, when I'm looking at this, I knew that no one had become higher than Kamini since 89. And so since around the year 2000, I was waiting for someone to become higher than Kamini. And I was looking in the old ancient Media area. And on that one part of the picture there, Turkey is part of that upper left corner of ancient Media area. And now, this right here, look at this here. Kamini, this is July 17th, 2016. Muslim scholars worldwide sent Erdogan a letter declaring him to be the supreme leader of the entire Muslim world. July 17th, 2016, Erdogan fulfilled prophecy. Daniel chapter 8, verse 3. Huge, huge. So then that should get us interested to say, well, what does verse 4 say then? Yeah, let's see what verse 4 says. Can you see that?
Yeah, I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, and so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand.
But he did according to his will and became great, something like that. And so Erdogan became president August 2014. And what has Khamenei and Erdogan been doing since that time? Remember ISIS? Remember how the United States was attacking ISIS and Turkey was attacking ISIS and Iran was attacking ISIS? But as Turkey and Iran was attacking ISIS, they were moving their military, their assets into like Syria, into Iraq, and then into Gaza, and they were also trying to jockey around politically in those areas as well. Daniel chapter 8, verse 4 has been in progress of fulfillment for over a decade.
Wow.
Isn't it cool to be able to look at, 2 chapters and look at what verse we're on in those chapters? This is huge.
Totally.
Now it should get us to really want to know, okay, well, what does the next verse reveal to us?
Okay, I'll read it. Daniel 8:4 says, I saw the ram.
We just read that one. Go
Okay.
here. No,
Let's see it. I don't see it.
yeah, I'm trying to change the screen. Can you guys change the screen on your side?
Yep.
There we go.
Got it. Okay, and just read
5.
5's cut. For some reason, it's cut off down there, so I'm just going to pull up my own scriptures. And unfortunately, I've actually been Ezekiel, Daniel. I've been in Daniel, actually studying Daniel chapter 9.
Go to the next verse. Here we go. This slide here, you can see it clearly.
Oh, got it. Got it. It says, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Verse 21, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia.
Who's
The
Grecia?
great America, according
Yes.
to this.
So who's the king?
Well, I would say in our world, the president is often considered the king.
And if you look for the word president in like the Blue Letter Bible, and all these other places, how many times will it come up with finding the reference of the word president? 0.
Probably 0. Yeah.
0. Now, what does this president of the U.S. tell us more about it? Go ahead.
And this great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. So we know that we now know who the fourth and, well, yeah, I mean, it's letting us know the order of the kings for sure.
Okay, now, but this is different though. So this is in Grecia.
That's right. That's right.
Well-
So this is the first king of Grecia.
Of Grecia, but Trump isn't the first king. However, in Daniel chapter 8, with this vision that this angel is giving to Daniel, it is the first king of the U.S. that is referenced within this vision. And the angel is trying to get us to focus on a very specific time. In that time is when Khomeini and Erdogan have been pushing to the west, north, and south. And as they've been doing that for the past decade, now we're talking about a time, a very specific time, when the president of the U.S. is going to do something. So let's see if we can tie in which president is talking about.
Okay, I like this.
All right. So go ahead and read verse 5 again.
And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, and he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him. Let's see, does it go further? In the fury of his power. So ran unto him in the fury of his power, and I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with what's that, choler? Roller? Against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore,
We're
Okay.
talking about a massive attack upon Khomeini and Erdogan. And that massive attack comes from the west, on the face of the whole earth, touches not the ground. So what is going on right now between Trump and Khomeini?
that's a great question. I know he was just over there in the Middle East, and they treated
Yeah.
him like he was a king. I mean,
He was
they
pretty
literally
celebrated.
rolled out the red carpet. I saw American flags, but he is certainly interacting with the Arab nations. So it's been interesting what's happened in the past week or so.
And it gets even more interesting when you take a look at what is going on between Trump and Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran. On the west side on the west side of Iran. So not in Iran, west of Iran. Trump is loading up battleships. He's loading up the Tomahawk missiles. He's loading up the F-16s, the F-35s, the B-2s, the B-52s. He's flying in dozens of cargo planes full of military equipment. And he had given Khamenei an ultimatum about 2 months ago and said, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You get rid of your centrifuges. If you don't get rid of your centrifuges, we're going to get rid of them for you.
Interesting.
Now, about 3 months ago or so, Trump attacked Yemen, and when he started to attack Yemen, he hit them hard. He hit the critical military places, but he also took out about a half a dozen of the Houthi leadership over there. He was going for the leadership. Isn't that interesting? Because here, prophetically, Trump is going to be going after those two kings, Erdogan and Khamenei. This is fascinating. We are being able to put names and faces to these people that are described in these chapters here. Isn't that awesome? Now, the mic drop. Now the bad news. Let's go ahead and have you read verse 8, and a little bit of it is cut off. You might want to read it from your scriptures.
I got it. It says, therefore, the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones forward, the 4 winds of heaven. Interesting.
Whew. Let's go ahead and read the interpretation, verse 22.
Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power.
Do you see what we're talking about here, guys? We're talking about the United States is going to split into 4 nations after Trump gets broken. This is huge.
So curious.
That's very interesting. When you're saying when Trump gets broken, does that mean that something happens to him?
You're reading the same words as I am seeing right there, Shane.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I had a dream, and the time period is 2027, and I saw him getting broken, and I saw the church call home all the missionaries at that time.
Wow.
So I don't know. I wrote it down, but yeah. So yeah, you're putting some interesting pieces together, and we're certainly seeing Trump make some serious moves here. So
And what's missing right now is Erdogan. Remember that Trump is to take out Erdogan and Khamenei. Now, Trump, he made a, I think it was on X where I read it. But anyways, he congratulated Erdogan through this text or whatever, congratulating Erdogan for doing something that no one's been able to do for 2,000 years. Erdogan had conquered Syria. And now, at the same time, Netanyahu is not happy.
no, that's another thing in and of itself. It just appears that that's not going well between Netanyahu and Trump either. So that's an interesting thing that's happening over there.
is an interesting play. There's all kinds of different takes on it. But from about the year 2000, when I made this connection that unless something changes, we're Grecia. And we're going to split into 4 nations, 4 kingdoms. Ever since about the year 2000 to the year 2020, people laughed at me. They mocked me. No way. But since 2020, they're not laughing anymore. And now, in the past couple months, as they see what's going on between Trump and Khomeini, they're really going, oh my gosh, Lowell, you said this. Look at this, But we're missing Erdogan. And Erdogan has been kind of quiet in the news right now. But Erdogan is the supreme leader of the entire Muslim world. And, Iranians are Muslims. And then Hamas was Muslim, Palestinian Muslim. And this has to be really weighing on Erdogan because he's supposed to be the supreme leader. And yet Israel has just been taking it to Hamas and Palestine to, and other places that have Muslims. And now Trump is going to take it to the Muslims. So this is, get your soda pop and popcorn. We got a show to watch here, guys. How does that play out?
I think it becomes challenging to create Zion the way Zion is described if something like this doesn't happen. And if something like this does happen, it makes it much easier to create the land of Zion because now you could have essentially your own government that comes in and you're not a part of the current system that we are now. And I've often wondered, I don't know how Zion gets created in the current system that we're in, that there would have to be a fall of the current system we're in and a new creation would need to come out of that. And one of those 4 parts could certainly be Zion.
That's it. You're right on there, brother. The angel doesn't say what the 4 boundaries are. But my hunch is that it's going to be, the West Coast is going to be a socialistic country. The East Coast, socialistic country. And I can see a Bible Belt going to the going to Florida. And then I see the Rocky Mountains going east, and I'd like to see it go into Missouri and up into Illinois. New land.
Yeah, I can see that. I could see that Zion kind of encompassing from one border to the other border, maybe that, call it the Utah area to the Missouri, Illinois area, and that being actually the safest part of America because you'd have to cross a lot of land in order to get into that. So if you were going to create Zion and fulfill prophecy in both Isaiah and the Doctrine and Covenants, it would need to encompass the Rocky Mountains as well as Jackson County.
Isn't this cool how we're just being able to start putting things together like this? And it gets way better, way better. And by the way, it's so interesting that I was talking to someone over in Utah, and they were telling me that the main controls for the nuclear weapons is over in, we'll say, the Salt Lake area for just simplicity reasons. And I thought that was interesting. But then I lived in Independence, Missouri. And I came to find out that just around here in Independence, there's a place that makes about 98% of the small ammunition for the military.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
That is
So,
interesting.
Very curious.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. There's more. Look at this here. This rhymes with 3 Nephi chapters 6 and 7. Remember in those chapters that you had the wicked judges who were killing the righteous prophets without permission, and the wicked judges got caught, and they were going to be tried. However, the chief judge was murdered, and the government collapsed, and the people went into tribes. Do you see the rhyme there? Trump is going after wicked judges right now. And he's going after the former FBI heads, the former CIA heads. He's going after the Clintons, the Obamas, things like that. And here we know that he's going to get broken. Now, Erdogan and Khomeini get broken too. So we'll see what happens to Erdogan and Khomeini, and that should give us some type of indication. But then when Trump gets broken, we don't go into tribes. We go into the 4 nations, the 4 kingdoms. Isn't that awesome to where we can start tying in where we are in 3rd Nephi?
Totally.
Because now it gets better.
Somebody brought up something about 29 and 3rd Nephi too, and they kind of tried to tie it into 2029, that before 3rd Nephi chapter 11. So that's also interesting that you're kind of in that space as well.
Okay, they're bringing up where? 3rd Nephi what?
I don't remember what it is, but it was like in the 29th year or something like that, and they're saying, could this correspond to 2029? So, but anyways, keep going.
Yep. So what's going to happen to Social Security, Medicare, prescription drugs, welfare, and the list goes on? What states will be part of which of the 4 countries? If we don't have a military ready for our new country, China and Russia could easily attack us in a vulnerable time. Isn't it interesting? In 1984, a man who was a lawyer and a judge who was very astute in the U.S. Constitution was called to be an apostle. Now, about 41 years later, as we are coming up to the U.S. splitting into 4 nations, President Dallin H. Oaks will be the first counselor or the president when the split happens.
I actually think about that quite a bit. Whenever I think about Elder Oaks and his role as an attorney, I often think that was not by mistake. Similar to how President Nelson was a doctor, a heart surgeon, but Elder Oaks, definitely.
Yeah, this is so. Can you guys read that?
Yeah. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, isn't it interesting? If the federal government collapses in early 2016, it will have been about 7 years from the time of President Oaks' talk from April 2019, General Conference, General Priesthood session titled, Where Will This Lead? Keeping in mind the U.S. to split into 4 nations. Please read and or listen to that talk.
Go ahead and read that.
Sure. In President Oaks' talk, he described a true story and saw a parable of sorts. College students on campus gathered around a tree watching an Irish setter sneaking up on a squirrel playing around on the base of the tree. The students watched, and as time went on, we'll just say the squirrel was gone. Anyone in that crowd would have warned the squirrel at any time by waving his or her arms or crying out, but none did. They just watched while the inevitable outcome got closer and closer. No one asked, where will this lead? When the predictable occurred, all rushed to prevent the outcome, but it was too late. Tearful regret was all they could offer. I remember this.
Yeah, great talk, great talk. Look at this, though, guys. I'm telling you right now, this is so much of a parable of what we're seeing right now. I've been sharing this information from about the year 2000. And have you guys heard about my information prior to this? Have you heard about the U.S. splitting up into 4 nations from Daniel chapter 11 prior to this?
I
And
think we did have a map at some point. Not sure if it was in one of our episodes, but I think that it may have been even a Lance video. But no, go ahead.
this is our time to look at these prophecies and to recognize where this is going to lead to and to take action. You can see why for the past over 20 years, I have been talking to politicians and candidates and pastors and church leaders and everybody that I can, saying, guys, we got to prepare for this. We don't want to get blindsided. We don't want to go into chaos. We don't want to go into anarchy or tyranny. We got to get ready for it. We got to have those discussions with the politicians within the states that we want to be part of our kingdom, our nation. And we got to figure out what's going to be the founding document and what's going to be the new currency. I'd like it to be the gold standard myself. It has to be something that's going to be able to stand up to all these prophecies coming our way. So that talk, I highly recommend that you read that talk, keeping this in mind. It's time that we stand up and let people see. I'm seeing Daniel chapter 8, verse 3 fulfilled, verse 4 in progress, verse 5 shaping up to happen starting any moment.
Yeah, now that you point that out in Daniel 8, it begins to make sense, especially if you're going to say Grecia is America. You can understand why he would be looking at America thinking it's Greece because of the architecture that he might be seeing, even though he's seeing the United States didn't exist. So he's only going to see things that make sense to his brain based on his experience, and he's going to describe it in that manner. So, yeah, I mean, I love doing this. We do this in Isaiah where we look at Egypt and what does Egypt mean, and Assyria, what does Assyria mean, and they're coded. So I like that makes sense with Grecian. It makes sense with what Donald Trump is doing. I am telling you, I don't care what people say about this guy. He doesn't have to be doing what he's doing. He's doing it, in my opinion, because God called him to do it. And he's doing what he's been called to do, love him or hate him. He's doing what he's going to end up fulfilling a lot of prophecy here. And he's going to go down in history as somebody who a lot of this prophecy saw. So
Yeah, right now what I see is happening is that now if you don't like Trump, don't worry about it. He's one of 40 plus individuals who are referenced regarding our day. And he's not going to be around a whole lot longer, according to the prophecy. But what he is doing is that he is making it to where he's pushing back the enemies of Israel. And this is going to allow some years going forward for Israel to restock and regroup and get ready for other battles that are coming years down the road that are the big ones. And so Donald Trump is giving Israel a little breathing room right here. And I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and read this one right here.
yeah, I'll read it. Prison Oak said, that true story is a parable of sorts. It applies to things we see in our own lives and in the lives and circumstances around us. As we see threats creeping up on persons or things we love, we have the choice of speaking or acting or remaining silent. it is well to ask ourselves, where will this lead? Where will the consequences, well, where the consequences are immediate and serious, we cannot afford to do nothing. We must sound appropriate warnings or support appropriate preventive efforts while there is still time.
We have angels of God that delivered these prophecies to Daniel. We have them in our day. Those prophecies were strictly about our day. And as we've seen, it's about right now.
Right.
This is our time to take heed to what President Oak says. And we got to sound the alarm. We have to go ahead and take action to be able to get the word out to all the Christians that we can. Because as Christians, we all believe in the Bible. We can all read Daniel chapter 11, Daniel chapter 8. We can all see where we are in them. And together, we can do what President Oaks is saying here, and we can just say, okay, look at the consequences. Look at how immediate and serious this situation is. Let's do something about it, guys. Wow, I can go on and on. All right. As of May 21st, 2025, I haven't seen action from one politician I have talked to over the past 20 years. We don't know when Trump will be broken. Perhaps it could happen as early as January 2026. Not a lot of time to prepare for the U.S. to split into 4 nations. You know the saying, prepare for the worst and hope and pray for the best. So what I'm encouraging people to do is I want to empower you. I want you to be able to take this information, Daniel chapter 11 and 8 that we've gone over, and you can share it with family and friends. You don't need me to do that. If you want to use this presentation or if you want to go to Bible Science Happening and use the information over there, I have charts, I have posters, I have, the 210 prophetic points. Happy to help out, guys. But the other thing is that I am really, really trying to get around to talk to the politicians, the pastors, other people. And so if someone would like to make a donation and help me in that, I would certainly welcome it so very much. We got to get these politicians talking. I know politicians that they agree with me, but they don't have the constituent support. So they're not coming out and saying anything. And so it's super important that we start to get this out to the Christians and get the Christians to talk it up so that the politicians feel like they have a mandate to get preparing for this. Okay. Now,
so one of the things I think is interesting about your last slide and talking about Daniel chapter 8 ties in actually to Daniel chapter 9. Because what Daniel does in Daniel chapter 9, he sees all of this and he starts pleading with the Lord. He starts fasting. He starts praying for Israel. And we should be praying and fasting for our people, for modern day Israel, which is us. We should be following what Daniel sees this. And then he immediately in chapter 9 starts interceding, starts praying, starts fasting for Israel. And I think it's symbolic, and we should be doing the same, praying for our people to repent, praying for our people to turn to the Lord, praying for our people to prepare for these things that are knocking at our doorstep.
yeah, and we have your podcast. We have all kinds of videos over at BibleScienceHappening.com. Yeah, we have the 210 prophetic points. That putting forth that 210 prophetic points so that people can see what has been fulfilled, up till 2013, and then seeing how from 2013 to 2026, we had We went from prophetic point number 15 to number 26. And now we're knocking on the door for number 27, 28, 20, and 29. And by the end of this year or the beginning of next year or so, we could be up to number 38. And so as we get these 210 prophetic points into the other people's hands, and they start to see them, that one happened, that one happened, that one happened. I want you to think about the potential to fan the flames of the greatest draw closer to Christ revival that the world has ever seen.
Amen.
This is so huge because as we get this information out, and more pastors start to do that 180 and go, yep, there we are. We're in Daniel chapter 11, verse 2, 3, and 4. And here we are. We're in Daniel chapter 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And as Christians start seeing everybody talking about this, some of the Christians are going to be saying, man, since when do all these denominations and things like that, when do they do a 180 and start agreeing like this? Wait a second. Look, that prophetic point just happened there. And that one just happened. Wait a second. When's the last time that I've prayed? When's the last time I've read the Bible? When's the last time I've gone to church? And then I could imagine that non-Christians seeing this huge draw closer to Christ revival going on. And they're going, what is going on with these Christians? Oh my gosh, look, that prophecy just happened. That prophetic point just happened. Wow. Maybe I should check out this Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, cool. Yes. Now, we only got through about half of the presentation. We're going to go ahead. We're at an hour and 20 minutes in. We're going to go ahead and call this part 1. I don't know if we're going to end up with 3 parts or 2 parts, but stay tuned. We are going to be bringing you the rest of Brother Taylor's presentation that he has. And I would say, yeah, go back and take a hard look at Daniel and the book of Revelation. There's a lot in there mixed in with some Isaiah that can help us understand exactly where we are right now, exactly what's happening in our political systems, and maybe how we should be preparing for some pretty drastic changes to our country and ultimately to the world. So, David, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I thought it was a great breakdown. I think it was good to see the parallels and the patterns of what's happening right now and in this chapter that we went through. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes. And hey, again, this is another plug for Oraqel Code. If you haven't gotten your Oraqel Code and your song, it'll be in the description here. Go ahead and click it, order it today. Trust me, it's having such an amazing impact on so many people to have their code and this personalized song. It's awesome. We love doing it. So go ahead and order yours today. Lowell, thanks again for taking the time. I'm looking forward to part 2 of this as we get closer and closer to what has been being anticipated for thousands and thousands of years. Listen, if you like this message, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this with your friends. Let's get the word out. And if you want to see even more of this information, Lowell, they can go to your website, which is Bible Signs. Give me it again.
BibleScienceHappening.com and SaintsBrightFuture.com. SaintsBrightFuture.com will bring in Doctrine and Covenants, Book of Mormon, other things like that.
Okay, SaintsBrightFuture.com. Go check it out. So for myself, I'm Shane Baldwin. Thank you again for tuning in and supporting Zion Media. For David the Lion Douglas and our amazing guest, Lowell Taylor, we'll see you all next time.
Where truth is our God.